What's up, everybody? I'm Navid Muases, and welcome to another episode of The Lifestyle Architects. Today, I am extremely excited to be joined by Ian Cleary. He's the founder of an awesome blog called Racer Social, which is the world's leading source of independent advice for social media tools and social media technology. And not only that, actually, Racer Social was a winner in the top 10 social media blogs awards by Social Media Examiner, and both in 2013 and 2014. So that's a little bit of an intro, Ian. I would like to welcome you to my show.
Thank you very much, Neva. I'm delighted to be on your show.
I mean, it's interesting. I've been following you for a while. What you're doing with Social is like just blew up, and I just a short amount of time actually, and now you're getting a lot of exposure. So why don't you tell us a little bit how it all started and yeah, kind of how you got to this point with Racer Social where you are today?
Sure, no problem at all. I suppose the just going back a bit, my background is technology, so I had about 15 years working in software industry, and I always end up in management, running teams, and I was getting bored because no matter what team I was running, I felt it was the same all the time. I was getting the right people, getting the right process, getting the right technology. So then I started dabbling in all sorts of businesses. I was selling property, I was selling gadgets online. I was an entrepreneur, that I didn't realize I was, but I was. And I started dabbling in all sorts of things. And then I drifted into consultancy. And then somebody someday asked me, would I give a presentation on social media? And I knew nothing about social media. So, of course, I said yes, best way to learn. And then I was asked to do a training course in social media. And so then we built a training company based around social media. I started then building Facebook applications. I'm not a developer, but I had a team building Facebook apps. And we were going to launch them internationally, but there was far too many people doing it. So we stopped that project, just felt, well, we'd make some money, but not enough money. And it wasn't a project I was super passionate about. It was for money, basically. And then I was going, okay, so I want to launch something internationally. I didn't really have a product idea. So what I did was I said I was going to start a blog, and I reviewed all the key influencers in the social media industry, and I made a list of about 100 of them, and most of them were in the US. And I said, right, I identified, well, what sort of content are they writing about and what were they focused on? And most of them are involved in a lot of consultancy, a lot of social media consultancy, and their blog is all general social media stuff, maybe social media strategy. They might do a bit on tools, but they didn't focus on it. So I thought, well, if I owned that niche, that would help me, move up the ranks within social media very quickly. So I picked social media tools. I don't talk about, this is how you do something on Facebook or Twitter, but I'll talk about any of the management tools, the analytic tools, anything around that, keyword research tools to help you around these platforms. And nobody else was doing it, focused on that particular niche. So I had a niche that nobody was focusing on, and then a very strong passion for technology and social media. So, I think it's with that passion as well makes a huge difference.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And that helped. That just meant things start moving quicker when you could say, "This is my space." Then before long, where people were sending me questions about tools, and then new tools people were coming to me saying, "Oh, I have a new tool. I have a new tool." And people say to me, "How do I hear about all these tools?" Every day I'll get emails with new tools every
Yeah.
single day. There's
Yeah.
no shortage of tools.
Nah, definitely. I mean, I find this interesting. I mean, when I look for tools now, since I found out about you, I just look at your blog posts. For example, you have like I don't know how many blog posts you have now, but it's a ton of posts. And I mean, what I found interesting as well is that maybe you write about a topic, and then you say what tools are available to do this in a better way or save more
Yeah.
time. And that's what I found kind of unique. Like a lot of people, they just maybe write how do you do this, but in the kind of this episode here on my show, we are going to get into more how you can build this profitable blog because you only built it in around 6 months. That's how you got a lot of success in only a short amount of time. So maybe we can start kind of step by step. What was the first thing you did besides like reaching out? I mean, you found a lot of influencers, and kind of built those lists and saw what they were doing, and then you found the gap in the market.
Okay, so the first thing I did was, yeah, identify, done my research first of all. So I'm online researching these 100 people making my list. And how I identify them is normally if you find, say, for example, one person and you say, Navid is a key influencer, in the business coaching industry for entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I start looking to see, well, who are you interacting with on a regular basis? People you're interacting with regularly are probably going to be influencers as well. So I used a tool actually called Twitterland, Twtrland, and Twitonomy. Actually, Twitonomy is the one which shows me who somebody on Twitter is interacting with the most.
Oh, wow.
And so I say, oh well, Navid, over the last 2 months, these are the 5 people you keep on talking to. You keep on talking to these people, they're probably influencers as well. So I built up that list, and then what I did is I create a Twitter list, and then within Hootsuite, I add them as a separate column within Hootsuite. So now I can just track all these influencers and start interacting with them, chatting to them. And my focus has always been, how can I help them? Genuinely just looking to help them. So I help them by sharing their content, by commenting on their blogs, which people don't comment enough on the blogs.
Yes.
Comment on their blogs, reaching out to them, doing guest posts for them. And that sort of started building the relationship. But then I got on a plane and I went to one of the conferences where a lot of them were at the conference. And because they had interacted with me online, it was very easy to go up and say hello to them. So then I try and have a drink with them or have lunch with them or just have 5 or 10 minutes with them. And once I have that sit down chat with them, now they know me as a person as well. Now, you can't do that for everybody that's on your website, but you can do that for the key influencers that you want to be involved with. So I did that, and one of my very first conversations was with Mike Stelzner, the founder of Social Media Examiner.
Not too bad.
No, it was a good one. So I'll tell you the story about that was, I arrived in the conference in New York. I was queuing up for a ticket for about an hour and a half, and who walks through the door but Mike Stelzner? So I'm thinking, I still haven't got my ticket at this stage. So I'm thinking, will I leave the queue and say hello to Mike Stelzner and then have to go back into a longer queue for a few hours, or stay in the queue? So that was my opportunity, seized the moment. So I left the queue, went over, shook hands with Mike Stelzner, asked him for a picture with him. And then during the day, a couple of times I bumped into him. And around lunchtime, I seen him at lunchtime and I said, hey, Mike, do you fancy going for lunch? And he said, sure. So we sat down, had a 45-minute conversation, and he said that the tools, there was nobody writing about tools really at Social Media Examiner, not a regular writer. He said, maybe there's an opportunity for you to write. So after me presenting a few different blog posts and, going back and forth with him and his editor, they agreed for me to write for Social Media Examiner. So now I was on a big platform with an audience that I wanted. And that sort of helped a lot. So I got onto that big platform. So I think entrepreneurship is figuring out that niche that you're passionate about. And sometimes you need a lucky break. And you get that lucky break by working hard.
Yeah, I mean, I've many things here you're saying is very interesting, that you actually tried to provide value. You wanted to share their content and like really be helpful, resourceful to the influencers in your field. But I think that's also something a lot of people are struggling with. They always try to take from other people. So this is kind of also an outreach strategy. Like, how do you reach out to them? And like maybe a follow-up to that is, why do you need the influencers why do you need them to succeed in your business?
Okay, the first thing about reaching out to them, it's so influencers are really important because they have audiences, and if they're it's the audiences that are relevant to you, you're interested in. So when you start off, you may not have any audience at all. So you can sit down and start blogging, start writing content, start networking with people, and over time you'll build the audience. But if you want to move that up a lot quicker, the best way is building the relationship with the influencers who has that audience. And over time, they'll start sharing your content. They'll ask you to contribute to posts they're doing. They'll ask you to do guest posting. And then over time, you build your own audience, and now you're the influencer. So the best way of becoming an influencer is hanging out, with the other influencers.
Yeah, and the first conference you went to, was it kind of blog world, the old blog world, or
That's right.
yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry,
So
Navid, I forget the first part of your question.
yeah, basically what I asked was like, yeah, you told me, like, why do you need to have influencers around you to succeed? And also, how can you do this kind of outreach strategy when, I mean, you're reaching out to them? Maybe you want to do a guest post like you are doing now for Social Media Examiner. You're a contributor, essentially.
Yeah.
How can you get to that point? Maybe you're not like having this lucky break, like you met Mike Stelzner, and having lunch with him. How can you do that? Especially when
Well,
you're a beginner.
well, I tell you, a key secret is, it's like from the influencers, every single day they're getting emails saying, here's my book, can you review it? Here's my tool, can you write it about it? Can I get onto your phone to pick your brain for 20 minutes? I meet you for so everybody's looking for something, 99% of the time. So the person that doesn't look for something is the person that stands out. So if you go, I want to form a relation with somebody, you go, well, how can I help them? If you can help them and look for something to help them, then they'll always want to help you back, and you will stand out. So how do you help them? I mean, it's like you look at them, first of all, if they have a book. You know as well, Navid, if somebody has a book, it's quite easy to get an interview with them.
Exactly, and especially if I read the book beforehand. And also, usually the interview turns out much better if I'm like, I mean, for example, with you, I know a little bit about you before I
Yeah,
invited you on here.
yeah.
And so it's much easier to have a conversation and make a really good interview with that. Yeah. So,
When I sat down with Mike Stelzner, so you say, oh, it was a lucky meeting. I had Mike Stelzner on the list of people I wanted to meet, and I had read his book inside out and back to front. So I knew a lot of the stuff from his book, which made a difference. But yeah, authors, when somebody writes a book, they love to get praise for the book. Genuine praise. If you see something of value, mention it. Do an article or an interview with the author because they all love to promote their book, and try and promote their book as much as possible. Like one of my strategies, I used to do Amazon reviews, and I always done video
oh
reviews.
yeah.
And they get notification when somebody does a review, and they go, "This guy has made the effort and done a video review." So you do a post on them, you interview them and you promote them. You promote their book, you share their content, you go to their blog and you comment. Now, not a "this is a good post" comment, a really
Yeah.
constructive, well thought out comment, and become a regular commenter. You subscribe to their blogs, and when they ask a question, provide feedback. Now, when you approach them and say, I've been a subscriber for a long while, you may have interacted with me on Twitter, you may have seen this article I wrote about your book, I'd love to connect with you further. Would you mind if I asked you a question? Of course, they'll say yes, and once you get that connection going, then it's like any relationships. You start off small steps and move on from there. And it's a series
Yeah.
of small interactions, these are the friendships. So if I met somebody once at a conference, I know it might be a little bit harder to form the relationship then, but I met them a second time or a third time, then it gets easier.
Definitely. I mean, something I did as well in the very beginning was to go to some influencers' blogs and not just leave this is a good post comment. I
Yeah,
actually left a thoughtful comment because I didn't really know at the time how I could provide value to them. But I knew that by doing so, I would maybe form a relationship with them. Eventually, when I did a podcast for whatever reason,
yeah,
I could get them on the show much easier. That's how I did share their posts, and like
yeah,
that's how I did in the very beginning. Now I know other ways I could provide value, but that's just some ways to get started, basically. And something else, you mentioned how you found your niche with kind
yeah,
of the tools is interesting because that's also a lot of people, they are maybe going too broad. I know that myself when I started, I wrote basically about my kind of entrepreneurial journey. And then I found that I got a lot of questions about
yeah,
branding, but also branding is very broad. So then we have personal branding, it's also
Yeah.
broad. Then we have maybe personal branding for creative entrepreneurs, online entrepreneurs. It gets better.
Yeah.
So like, can you talk a little bit about this process of finding or defining this niche or the content niche so you can create this, which we are going to get into, blog post, and get really a lot of attention?
Well, I think when you're producing content online, you need to stand out somehow.
Hmm.
So there's a couple of ways of standing out, and one is to pick a niche or niche, as they call it in the States.
Yeah.
We call it a niche, but it's a niche. So one way is to go, okay, nobody's writing about this particular area. Well, that's my area. And it's not like that nobody writes about it. It's nobody that's has a big audience that's influential, because you are going to become influential. So it doesn't matter if there's thousands. Other people have smaller blogs. You're looking at the bigger ones. So that's one way. The second way is delivering the content in a unique way. So, for example, nobody does a podcast in your area. So you go, I'm going to be the podcasting expert. Like you had John Dumas on your show. So John done interviews with entrepreneurs. What's unique about that? Well,
Yeah.
okay, he said he's going to do interviews with entrepreneurs. He's going to do it 7 days a week, one entrepreneur every day, and then he's specific formula for it. And his podcast skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So it was just a different slant on it, even though there was just so much content on entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
So you just pick your area. And like the way you've done it yourself is going, it's, I'm looking at, it's not branding, it's personal branding. It's personal branding then for entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
So.
I could even go more niche if I wanted to, but maybe I'll find my specific, like, the client when I get more, even create courses, get questions. Maybe I can even go more narrow. But
Yeah.
that's what I found working now. I get a lot of questions about this, so that's kind of how my focus is. Not maybe for personal branding for lawyers, or
Yeah.
I could do that too, but that's not what I'm doing. Maybe later, you can go and do a speech for a law firm. I don't mind. They are paying for it, but
Yeah.
I think that's difficult in the beginning as well when you're starting. How do you actually find this? Like, if you are trying to maybe cater to everyone, you cater to no one, and like no one will pay attention to you. So these tips I think they're valuable to find your unique angle, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just think things move an awful lot quicker for you if there's a unique angle, and especially if you can leverage off your experience and expertise. So my background is 15 years in technology. So if somebody's in the social media field and goes, right, I'm going to do social media tools, well, it's going to be harder for them unless they have a very strong background in technology. I know how to talk to developers, and I know how the underlying architecture of products works and stuff. So because I was in a testing environment and a development environment and everything, I can talk to somebody about their product and really understand how it all comes together and hangs together. So, and then I'm good at explaining that in an English way, a straightforward way, which is really important from a technical side. So yeah, I mean, it's there is a unique angle for everybody in every industry. There is. You need to sit down and do that research and look at who are your competitors online. Search through Google, find out your competitors, start making a list, start looking at Twitter, or Facebook. Over time, you'll see the same people popping up. Who's at the conferences, who's writing the books. Then you start narrowing down your list. And then you start going, well, what are they writing about? What are they known for? Mark Schaefer is a friend of mine who is in the social media world. We know Mark. And, I'd say, strategy, he goes into corporates and sorts out their strategy. That's never going to be me, I'm not the strategist, you know what I mean? So
interesting. I mean, especially with that, with kind of going into like finding your niche, that's one part, and finding your unique angle. But one thing that a lot of people kind of miss out on, especially like I talk a lot about personal branding, it's like being yourself online, being authentic. That can be just one way. Obviously, a lot of people are like out there, so you maybe might need to find some other thing as well, other than your personality. But
Yeah,
people buy from you, they don't buy products or companies, there's like the personal
yeah.
brand side of things. I think that's extremely important, and you leverage your experience with kind of from technology background and got it in here, so it's hard for other people to kind of take your spot.
Exactly. And the thing about the personal brand, you're right about, I suppose in the role I'm in, it's me. It's exactly who I am. I behave exactly how I'd normally behave. I like humor. I always like humor. So there's always humor in my presentations, in my newsletters, or there's a bit of humor. I'm a friendly person in real life. So I use a friendly tone in my emails, and I'll always respond to people because I enjoy chatting with people. So I
Yeah.
always respond. And I mean, I end up sending a lot of emails every day, but that's part of me. I can't not respond to people and stuff. So, you know,
Yeah, I found that as well on your blog. I read some posts, and you respond to, I believe, every single comment. Like, I don't
yeah,
know if I can be wrong now, but I think you do still.
I do. Yeah, if it's spam, I'll delete it, or
Yeah,
somebody
of course.
just there to promote themselves. But if somebody send any genuine comment at all, I'll always respond to it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, before we get into kind of this, how you can create like blog posts and get attention, I wanted to ask you something around kind of premium positioning, because I've been talking about this a lot lately on the show. I had Nick Reese on. He's like talking a lot about how you can position yourself premiumly. So my question is basically how you can position yourself as the go-to person in your field, and later, charge those premium prices we all want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm speak at circuits now, and I would get well paid for speaking at events. And the reason is because I networked with the influencers. I became an influencer. Now I'm one of the influencers. So now you can command the higher rates. And as you build your brand, then your name starts getting mentioned with other people. Like Kim Garst did an article recently on Twitter, on Huffington Post, about Twitter mavericks, and it was me and Gary Vaynerchuk and Jeff Bullas and Mark Schaefer, and that just really helps your brand. So now you're in with these influencers. Now you can charge the bigger rates, command the higher rates. Because you're in demand. Then they they want you to speak at events. Writing a book, of course, is
Yeah.
valuable as well, and we've talked about this. That moves you up the notch, even if you don't sell a lot of copies of the book. It's people like to see, well, you're an author. You're an author. You're a speaker. That helps. You've won awards. All that sort of helps move up. But yeah, it's becoming that influencer in your industry, as you are the person. You know, I look at Michael Brenner. I don't know if you've come across Michael Brenner.
I think I've heard of it, yeah.
He's one of he's very senior guy in SAP in marketing, and he's actually left now. He moved to another company, but he had his own site, michaelbrenner.com, and he built his personal brand through a lot of content that's relevant to the corporate environment, and it's very high in demand for speaking and for consultancy and everything. By building his own personal brand outside his company.
I mean,
So even if
interesting.
even if somebody is in a company at the moment and is thinking, "Oh, I want to be an entrepreneur," well, start your personal brand now. Start building that, building your network, networking with people, networking with the influencers, and then when you're ready with your product, you have a network already.
Definitely, I completely agree. And I mean, it's a little bit how I started. I just started my website, navidmoases.com, and I started putting out content. I started reaching out to influencers even before I had this show in mind. I mean, it's almost been a year since I went at the time of this recording, since I started my website, and my
Uh,
first kind of blog post or interview was with Pat Flynn of the Smart Passive Income. And this blog post, it was my first one ever putting out something online. Got like 93 comments. I mean, it's crazy, because I
yeah,
just reach out to other people. We are going to get into blog post promotion in a bit here, but that's kind of what I did even before I had a clue what I was doing. And
yeah.
I mean, it's quite interesting how it like all evolves like a personal brand from like when you're starting.
Yeah, I mean, I've advised people like this. We talk about blogging. Say I advise people on this as well, is involve all these other people onto your blog. you can get the interviews, you can get the group posts or any of that, and that helps a lot build your brand quicker, you know.
Definitely. So, if we move on here a little bit, we've talked about influencers, how we can reach out to them, and I mean, we need maybe some content. What's the kind of the next step we should take after that to build this blog? We want it to grow. We want to get more people involved. We want to get more shares and all this stuff.
Well, you have to write content.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
So the thing about it for me for content, I think it's extremely important that you're very consistent with your content. You don't, like a gym membership, when you join in January and you go, 10 times the first week and second week, third week, then you give up. You can't do that with blogging. You have to be consistent. And it has to be high quality content. Never publish anything that's not high quality. Just don't do it. Forget about the post. Don't just publish for the sake of publishing. But do try and plan ahead. Even if you can only do one post a month, do one high quality post a month rather, and never miss that month and keep on doing it. I think that's really important. The content, I always do detailed content because, if you do short, snappy content, I find that very hard to do something valuable in a short piece. Seth Godin,
300 words or 200 words post, right?
Yeah, he can do it, and
he get away with it, right?
Yeah, but it's super smart posts that make people think about it. Think about it is, if I write a long, detailed post like the ultimate guide to keyword research, and it is the ultimate guide, well, then people will share it more, people will link to it more, it will start ranking in Google, and I'll get lots of traffic on an ongoing basis for it. So it's worth my while putting in the effort.
Definitely.
So typically I do posts at least 1,000 words, sometimes 1,500, and I've done posts 5, 6, 7,000 words.
How much time do you spend? I want to give the listeners an idea of how much time it actually takes to create an epic piece of content.
Okay, so first of all, I'm slightly different, as in my whole business is content.
Yeah.
So people shouldn't get frightened by the time that I spend generating content, because that's not for every business. But content, for me, more high quality content, the bigger audience, the more money I make.
Yeah.
So it depends. If I'm doing a post, I would generally do 2 to 3 hours for a post. A normal post on a weekly basis, I'll do 2 to 3 hours for a post. If I'm doing an epic piece of content, I did one post for Social Media Examiner, which was 45 social media tools and tips, 6,000 words. It took me 3 days to write it.
Yeah.
But it was the most shared piece of content, that year for Social Media Examiner related to that area. And it still gets lots of traffic and tons of comments. That post was done so people would remember me. So it was worth doing that every so often. So typically what I'll do is, on a monthly basis, I do 3 posts a week on my site, but on a monthly basis, I'll do a big post.
Yeah.
Where I'll do I done one on WordPress plugins, and I got feedback from 51 different people.
Yeah.
And it was 6,000 words. Now, luckily, I didn't write much of the content because everybody sent me feedback.
Yeah.
But that post, was probably shared 3,000 times or more. And it's like 70 or 80 comments. And, so it gets a lot of attention, a lot of traffic.
Yeah, you got experts involved. And that's the strategy I used as well. I wrote a post with, I believe it was 37 experts shared their best personal branding tips for entrepreneurs. Yeah. And at the time, I didn't have, my audience was not as big, but I reached out to all of them. And this post got, I don't know if it has like 1,500 or it's like growing, it's like gets like some daily traffic, even it was a few months since I published it. But and I sent them a question, I reached out to them in a genuine way. I wanted some feedback for this post. I wanted to get them exposure because I knew this post was going to spread around. So I had kind of a case for it. It was not just going to sit on my blog and maybe get 2 or 3 shares. This post actually got, and they see that now. Like if some big influencers see that, and now I invited some of them to my show, and they are happy to do that because I gave them exposure. Yeah.
Think about you said as well. You said genuine, and that's really important when you're reaching out. Don't make up stuff. I have the largest blog in the world, and I'd love you to be on it. They'll look at your blog and they'll know what stage you're at anyway. like a genuine message to somebody saying, I'm starting off on a blog. I actually don't have an audience.
Yeah.
But I'd love if you could just answer this one simple question. This would mean an awful lot to me. Thank you very much. If you don't get to answer it, I completely understand because you're super busy. Who's not going to answer that? You know?
Yeah.
This is the thing. So you have to you appreciate that they have limited time. They always mention, I know you don't have much time.
Yeah.
Make it very easy for them. And like you were saying, you asked one question
Yeah.
and be genuine in your email, put a bit of effort in, and then your response rate. Don't ever send a blast email to 50 people with the exact same thing in it, to influencers, because that's your first impression, that lasts. So they have a negative impression immediately. Spend the time focusing on building the relationships.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And something else here is that I mean, there's one thing to reach out to them and then we want the shares. But before we get to that, like, what's some other like content types like people can create? Maybe what kind of blog post does well in terms of maybe social media sharing and getting this attention we all want for our blog to grow it?
Okay, so the long detailed posts do really well. So if you do an ultimate guide to anything in your area, then we're talking about being seen as an expert. Then you take that post and you go out and you promote it. You find people that have a relevant audience for that post and you tell people about it. So that ultimate detailed guide in any industry is great. An interview post, for a particular influencer can do really well. The group posts where you get like 30 or 40 people to give feedback, they can do really well. So you can do one way, you can do like 10 people, or you can go 40 or 50 people.
Yeah.
So the 10 people, you can still do a couple of them ones. They're smaller and easier, and they'll promote the content for you. And then spend a bit of effort on the bigger 50 ones. Infographics can do very well. So an infographic, just a visual representation of something. But the key with an infographic is don't just have an infographic, have lots of content with the infographic. Because you want Google to go, oh, here's plenty of content to index.
And where do you get it done? Where would you get an infographic? Let's say you want to do an infographic. I mean, this is actually a little bit selfish question because I want to do that for personal branding eventually. I want to create this, like, as you said, the definite guide or the ultimate guide. I know Neil Patel is like probably one of the best examples. Like his guides, they are amazing. Amazing. But most people cannot afford to spend that much on design. His guides cost, I mean, I don't know, tens of thousands of dollars, something. I don't know. They're expensive, But like, where can we get something like that done, like an infographic in a great way? Yes.
I suppose if it's just an infographic and you want to go for the low cost route, well, then you'd use a tool like PictoChart, Pikoto chart. And PictoChart provides a whole suite of templates. And you pick your template, then you can change the colors, background, images, text. So you can create a reasonably professional infographic, for $20 or $30. It's not expensive. Now, if you want to go for the professional route and you want to be unique and go, oh, this is really important for me, you might spend $1,500, $2,000. I use a crowd in Australia, Donna, in Socially Sorted.
Oh yeah, I'm actually. Oh, that's interesting because my designer or this guy I'm working with for my team is actually the guy who designed her site too. So.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
So is it B something? Or?
B coding, yeah.
B coding, that's right. Yeah. So he worked with Donna.
I gave him a little bit of shout out here as well. So that's good.
Good.
Yeah.
So I got Donna's expert in anything on the visual side. So we did a post on 29 marketing tools, and that done really well. Now, another trick to do as well is partner with somebody that will get benefit out of your audience. So I partnered with a couple of different companies where I said, listen, do you want to pay for the infographic? And that worked. Because they pay for the infographic, I produced the infographic, and I put their name at the bottom of the infographic alongside mine. And once it was relevant and they promoted it and I promoted it, and everybody got benefit out of it. So you can look at going, is there somebody I can partner with to produce that infographic. You're looking for somebody with a good audience that does not have the time to produce their infographics, and you might produce it. List posts typically do very well. So anything with a number
You
typically
did them a
gets
lot,
shared
right?
twice as
You
much.
did them
Yeah,
quite a
I do.
lot.
I do. It's just it works really well. If I go 9 things do this, 5 things do this, you'll get twice as many shares with a list in it.
Yeah.
So and
And
people love how-to posts. How to do something, and really make it step by step. And I like to include lots of visuals because it's boring if it's lots of text. So you need to break it up with visuals.
yeah.
And the tool for creating visuals, I use Canva. It's a very easy tool to create visuals, and you don't need to be a graphic designer.
Yeah, great. And I went through your blog, and how do you get all these kind of ideas for blog posts? Did you model someone when you first started out, or what did you like? What did you do?
So one of the key things is to come up with an editorial calendar. So if you're using WordPress as your blog, you could use Editflow or CoSchedule are the two tools I'd recommend. And once you set an editorial calendar, then you start planning out your content. So it's never a case, I never sit down and go, oh, what will I write about today? I've got like 150 ideas in queue. They may not be perfect ideas, but if we're chatting away and you say to me, how do you use Twitter to monitor, the growth and development of your brand? I'll start thinking, okay, branding and Twitter, that's an interesting topic. Put that into my editorial calendar. And the status in my editorial calendar is a pitch. I'm just pitching it as an idea to myself.
Yeah.
And anytime I interviews or I'm reading a blog post and go, that's an interesting one, maybe I'll have a different angle, into Editflow. Everything goes into that bucket.
And then Editflow, is that the plugin in WordPress or something else?
It's a free plugin in WordPress.
Okay, so it's different from the WordPress editorial calendar, I guess. So.
Yes, I think Editflow is the WordPress editor.
Oh, it is the same. Okay.
Yeah. So what I do then is I set up custom statuses with it. Say, for example, pitch, in progress, assigned. What I do is pitch just as a random idea. Assigned means, okay, I've assigned it out and it's to myself, but I'm going to write something now on this. It's just I haven't written it yet. And in progress means I'm actively writing at the moment. So if you look at my editorial calendar at the moment, you'll see there's about 6 weeks of content written. So all completely written, all scheduled out.
Wow.
And now I'm writing, more posts. But the thing is, I'm constantly feeding that with ideas anytime I come across ideas. And when you start blogging, you start listening. You're always listening for ideas. You start reading more, you start networking more, and you start filling up with ideas. And they say blogging is a habit. It is. It's every morning I blog at some part of the morning. So it's just a habit of blogging. And once you get into the habit, where do I get the ideas? Just keep on coming. There's, I don't go, well, what I'm going to blog about in 4 months' time, I don't know. But will I have content to write about? Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's a key thing here as well. We've been talking about this. Consistency is key, but also having like Joe Polizzi, like my last interview, episode 25 of this show, he talked about the importance of having an editorial calendar. That's one of the most important things you can do to kind of plan it out ahead of time. If you're really like been in the game for a long time, you might even have like an entire like year like planned out exactly what you're going to write. But the most important thing is just to get started. Maybe have a few weeks at least pre-planned, and then just get going with it. Come up with more things, as you said.
Yeah, exactly. Some people do a full year plan and then do themes and go, oh, in January I'm going to do this theme, February this theme, March this theme. That's up to you. It doesn't work for me. I prefer going, I know what I'm writing over the next month. And the thing is, once you plan it out, well, then you don't end up with the same type of posts on a Monday and a Wednesday, or, So you plan it out and you go, oh, hang on a minute. All these 3 posts are pretty along the same topic. Maybe I'll spread them out, and so my audience is not reading very similar content, so I can spread them out a bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing now. We're writing this content, coming up with some ideas. I mean, what I found, I'm looking at what other people are doing. If I see a post maybe with 10 personal branding tips, I do a post with 50, or like what I did.
Yeah,
I mean, I do something like much bigger. I think you agree with on that
yeah.
as well. Like, I'm sure like social media, there's a lot of people doing this online, but what you are doing well, I think you are looking at that, and maybe doing something more epic, like really spending more time on creating this.
That's what I'm focused on. I mean, sometimes I look to see, well, what's the most shared piece of content related to a particular topic, or what's the content has the most links to it. So it's been so good that lots of people have linked to it. And I go, that's a good piece of content. How am I going to write a piece of content that's better than that? So I get the links, not that guy.
Yeah.
So it is like going, right. If you're going to write something that's out there already, well, then you should be writing your own slant on it and something that's even better than what's out there already. It might be just more up to date. It could be longer, more detailed, better steps, easier to understand, slightly different angle, your perspective on it. So it's not always reinventing the wheel, you know?
Yeah, and
If
also
you,
maybe having your own opinion can also help. That's something Joe Pulizzi said as well. Like a lot of people, they don't talk about this. They're just trying to fit in. But maybe having your tone to the article or video, whatever you're doing, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be like
yeah,
blog post. It can be podcast. Like whatever works for you, you can do that. But you need to do it like the highest level possible
yeah.
and keep it up consistent. Yeah.
Like how often should you publish? Well, if you can only if you can produce the high quality content, don't publish 5 days a week. If 4 days of the week it's poor quality content,
Yeah.
you're much better off doing the one article. Like, and a very good example is Brian Dean from Backlink O, who is a lot of skills in SEO. He does one post a month. You know,
Yeah.
now it's one monster post.
Yeah.
You know,
I followed
but
him as actually, so I know. Yeah.
so I've seen him getting 300 comments, and a ton of shares. And I've seen him ranking for highly competitive terms in the SEO industry, and his blog is relatively new, because he writes exceptional content and then he goes out and he promotes that heavily.
Let's get into that now. Like
Okay.
we've talked about like reaching out to influencers, the outreach. We've talked about how you can create great content, finding your niche. So now it's all about maybe you have your blog, you're writing this like really great content, but if you don't
Yeah.
promote that, it's gonna be a ghost town and nobody's gonna see your post. So how do you like? What's your thing when you're? How do you get these thousands of shares to your content? Because I saw that you are getting like almost every post is getting a lot of shares, especially when you are starting out. That's I think a lot of people would like to know.
Okay, so when you're starting off, if you want to fast track it, well, then do the posts where you're interviewing the experts who will, and then you let them know once you've interviewed them and done the post that the article's there, and make it very easy for them to share. So they might send a tweet or an update, and that helps, because their audience then will see it and share it out. Or do the larger posts where you interview a lot of people and you interview 50 people, or you get them to answer one question. You send them an email saying, listen, this is what we've done. They'll share it out and you'll get lots of shares. You'll guarantee to get lots of shares and stuff from that. As you start building up your audience, then you need to start doing your promotion directly. Where, for example, when I do a blog post, I have a tool called Deliverit, dlvr.it. You use it.
Yeah, I found it from you actually.
Oh,
So that's
great.
why I'm like, it's funny. I read it about it today. So it's like funny you mentioned this tool. I set it up. It like shares out automatically, I think. So it's quite
Yeah, so it
interesting.
just takes your blog post and shares to your relevant channels, which you always want to do. So you want to share it out there in channels. There's some blogging communities you can join where people help each other and share each other's content. And that's good just to get your name out there. For example, Triber. Triber is a community of bloggers, and you can join various tribes, tribes are generally around a specific topic. So you say, oh, there's a tribe about entrepreneurship. Join that tribe. If you find really good content, you share their content. They come in looking at your content and they'll share it. And then blogging communities helps a lot. The second, sometimes, it's overlooked, is that people don't reach out to other people. I'd write a notebook guide on entrepreneurship. who's going to be interested in that ultimate guide? Who's that going to benefit for? So maybe you might find, a blog on entrepreneurship and say, listen, I've written this ultimate guide. I thought your audience might be interested in it. So you might reach out to them. Or you might reach out to different industries, outside of this that could be interested. So it's actually emailing people as well. Now, a lot of the times when I'm sending emails, say for example, I have an infographic and I want somebody to publish the infographic. I'll send an email to you, Navid. This is what the email will say, something along these lines. Say, hi, Navid. I've been following you for a long while. I love your content. I particularly love the last podcast. What was the one from Robert Greene?
Yeah.
And I said, particularly like that. And I've done this infographic about entrepreneurship. I think your audience, based on, what you talk about, I think your audience might be interested in it. Would you like me to send you over a link? Now, it's easy to go, you could say instead, hi, Navid, here's a link to the infographic. Can you publish it?
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah, if I say to you, would you mind if I sent you the link? Okay, now you have a yes-no dilemma. So it's very easy to reply and go, yeah, sure, send it. Okay, now communication's opened up. Now I have a very good chance of convincing you to publish it. So my next email was, oh, here's the link. If you'd like, I can provide some content alongside this and making it easy for you. So I'll write an article, a guest article alongside it. But it's the reaching out to a relevant audience is really important. And if you reach out in the right way, well, then you're building a relationship with somebody. You're not just, blasting emails. You're really taking time, picking the right people and reaching out.
So it's all about taking the time to do that, because I think most people, they don't even promote their content. I know Derek Halpern, he talks a lot about promotion and how to promote yourself, and that a lot of people, he did a webinar recently actually on that. A lot of people, they are promoting themselves really the wrong way, and it's all about kind of focusing 80% of your efforts on the promotion side and maybe 20% on the creation. But most people do the opposite. They focus all of their efforts like trying to create really great content, but when it comes to kind of creating and like reaching out to people, they don't do it the right way. They are maybe just telling like publish this guide or whatever. It's like not a genuine way.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you an example. I wrote a comment on a blog once, and then VentureBeat, who are a big blog with 7 million unique users, came to me and said, I'd love you to do articles on VentureBeat. And that was through reaching out and commenting on a blog, a good constructive one. So that reaching out is important. I use a tool called BuzzStream to keep track of who I'm reaching out to. Because if I'm reaching out to a lot of people, in a week's time, I'll forget about, did I email them? What did they say? What happened?
Yeah.
So for the first infographic I did, I reached out to maybe 70, 80 people. And about 10 to 15 of them published the infographic. And maybe 15 to 20 came back and said, not right for us at the moment. So next time I produce an infographic, I have 80 people in my list. I have 15 to 20 that published a previous one. And if it was a high quality and done well, I can say, listen, you published the last infographic on your site. I see I got a lot of shares, really interesting. Well, this appeals to the same audience. Would you be interested? So you get a lot of them people doing it. And then you can reach out to other people and say, I approached you before about the infographic. I know it didn't really suit your audience, but this one I think might have a better chance. And you'll get some of them. So it gets easier as you go along.
Yeah, and something else I think is maybe to look at other people who shared like similar kind of content.
Yeah.
Maybe they have blogs, and reach out to them. I keep a kind of Twitter list of people who are sharing my content, and so I really keep track of them. And I don't do it all the time, so I kind of reach out to them because that's like too much promotion. But every once in a while, if I really know that this is like epic, I recently had Joe on, as I mentioned, and I created like a guide of everything we talked about because it was so good, and it was
Yeah.
like 30 pages or something. And I like,
Wow.
yeah, I created this, and they could sign up. Obviously, I want them to sign up to my email
Yeah.
list, which we are
Yeah.
get into in a bit.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I did, and I figured that if I can do that for most of my episodes when I have time, that I can also build my email list and also provide more value to the people who are listening into this. And
Yes.
yeah.
Great idea. Yeah.
So that's kind of working. So you're actually getting a little bit out of the podcasting because it takes a lot of time, but it's also really rewarding speaking
Yeah.
to like influencers, like reaching out to people like you yourself. Otherwise maybe we wouldn't have an opportunity to talk if it wasn't maybe at a conference.
Well, that's it. That's it. And it means that, after this call, it means that it's much easier then for us to chat, and
Hmm.
you'll feel comfortable. I'll feel comfortable sending you an email. You'll feel comfortable sending me an email. So it's the
Definitely.
start. It helps build the relationships.
Yeah, and we talked like, I mean, for Twitter especially, I found that kind of my best source of traffic when I'm publishing these kind of list posts or expert roundup posts. I don't know if you found kind of the same way. Where are you getting
Yeah.
the traffic from to Racer Social when you do that?
Yeah, it's more from Twitter. There's a lot of tweets go around all right. Yeah.
And how do you just include them in the tweet and say, hey, I just published this post, or how do you go about that?
I don't really, because it's I find it hard to keep track, so I just publish it a few times, and then I focus on sharing other people's content that I know has a relevant audience,
Mm.
so other influential people, and then they end up sharing my content as
How
well.
do you find kind of that? Where should you go like to find it? There's some tools to use to find other content like that to share as well, like that
Well,
you're
what
using.
what you can do is you can use BuzzSumo, to you can put in keywords and see what is the most shared content for the keywords,
Uh,
and then you can actually see. I don't know if this is available yet, but I have a newer version that you can view who's shared that content.
mm,
So I can put in your blog post, and
yeah.
I'll see the amount of shares across all the different channels, and then I'll see a list of all the people that have shared out that content, and I can sort that based on who has the most followers and everything.
What's that called? Is it?
BuzzSumo,
Okay.
and actually I think that feature is in beta, that they haven't released or
That's
announced yet.
that's
So
awesome. I think to see really because it's hard to keep track, as you say, and if especially when you're starting out, you might actually want to include the influencers in your tweets because otherwise they
yeah.
might not find out about your post in the first place if you're including them, right? So
Oh yeah, no, I'll definitely include their names if they're mentioned in there. And what I'll do is on Facebook, I'll tag them on Facebook, and on Google Plus, I'll tag them on Google Plus as well.
mm,
But yeah, the other advantage of using something like BuzzSumo is when you see a list of people that have shared out your content, then you can follow them through BuzzSumo.
yeah. And
So then they'll follow you back and more likely to share your next piece of content.
but do you focus anything on the SEO side of things to drive traffic and kind of? I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
we talked about this, like creating like really really in depth like pieces of content. But do you focus on anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I use all-in-one SEO plugin. I optimize the content. I use Google Keyword Tool to research keywords to see what traffic are getting. I'd optimize the title and the description and the content, just so it's helping Google index the content correctly.
Mm.
And then, of course, I'm trying to get links back from all the content. And the better the content I have, and the more promotion I do, the more links I will naturally get to the content,
Mhm.
and the higher it ranks. So
Yeah, I mean that's also something. I mean, what I saw interesting on your site is that almost every post also got a lot of comments, and that's
yeah,
also one thing with blogs. I mean, I was lucky maybe when I started out, I did the outreach, I got the
yeah,
comments. But what was your strategy when you kind of went out there? Because now you're building this kind of community and tribe, and they
yeah,
follow you and they come back to almost every post. So you don't need to do as much promotion down the road if you build this kind of super fans, whatever you want to call them, and they
yeah.
comment on every single post.
The thing about it is, people don't comment on blogs that don't have comments.
Mm.
So so it's like going, how do you get comments if there's no comments? The thing is, you have to start encouraging them comments. So that's reaching out to people and asking them, what's your opinion on this? I'd love to give you a comment. I've got that from lots of people before where they said, I'm after writing an article about social media tools. I know you have a knowledge in this area. I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments. So I go over and read the post and comment. So you do a little bit of outreach and you encourage people to comment. And as you encourage the comments, they'll come back and they'll comment more. And then other people will see there's comments and go, hey, it's okay to comment. So I'll comment as well. I mean, you're always going to have like 95% of people will not comment.
Yeah.
That's just part of it. But it's to get that 5% because when people come to your blog and see people are commenting on it, they'll say there's a good community. I mean, you said earlier on, Navid, about I respond to all comments. You noticed that. You're not the only person that noticed it. So people look at that and go, actually, Ian is listening and, he's not just writing stuff, he's interacting and building the community and answering comments. And so that's really important. So even if I respond and say, thank you very much for commenting, people like to be thanked.
Definitely. I mean, another thing where it comes down a little bit maybe to the technical thing, you use Discuss, but I right now I use the normal WordPress commenting system. Like, what's some kind of advantages of using Discuss plugin and maybe to using the WordPress one? I mean, I've been in the fence of maybe moving, but then I see some other people, they are not saying I shouldn't because I don't know. So that's maybe your side of things.
In the industry I'm in, where a lot of marketers and digital marketers and social media people, most of them have an account on Discus. So it depends on the industry. They mostly have an account on Discus, so when they arrive to the site, they don't have to log in. If you have to remember your username and password for a commenting system, you're in trouble. Like, for example, Livefire is a very good commenting system with lots of great functionality, but they've too small an audience. So most people are not going to have an account in Livefire, not going to be logged in. Whereas Discus own the commenting, so now WordPress comments, there's nothing particularly wrong with WordPress comments, but I just find with Discus, I got more comments as a result of having Discus.
Okay.
So it just works.
Yeah,
now, an alternative one I'm going to try is putting Discus and Google Plus.
Oh yeah, that's actually interesting. I think I'm having him on the show soon actually. I mean, when this goes live, it will probably be, I have had this interview already, but it's with Ryan Hanley. He's using like Google Plus comments, and I think he's using, I don't know if it's good, it's the WordPress or if he's using Discuss as well.
I think it's Discuss and stuff, yeah.
Yeah. But that's good. So when they comment with their Google Plus account, because most people, they have a Gmail account, so then it goes to maybe their page, right? And they go get social shares. Okay, interesting. But that's the thing. Like, people say, I mean, I may not get the link. If you comment with the WordPress and people are coming, I don't get the link. That's why you have like Discuss. They don't get the link with that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's no follow. So, yeah.
Okay, that's great. So the kind of last part here we will cover is that you really don't have a business without building an email list, and that's something I regret from the very beginning. I didn't really focus on it that much, even though I knew it was important. I just had so many other things to kind of keep track of, and even Derek Halpern, Pat Flynn, all these people, they did the same mistake, and they're saying this. And you built your brand, Racer Social, in 6 months, so you must have focused on it like from day one.
Yeah, I focused on the email list from day one, and it wasn't that I was particularly smart and did it. I just read what everybody else was doing, and I read the Derek Halperns and all these, and they were all talking about the email list. So I said, no, that's it. Day one, I'm going to build that list. And it takes a little while to build momentum with the list, but as it starts growing, then it becomes hugely valuable. Like we're running a webinar next week. We'll probably get close to 1,500 people registered. And a good part of that is because our promotion to our email list. We get people onto a webinar and then we can sell products on the webinar. So the email list is a stepping stone to making money from visitors on your site. Definitely. So it's extremely important because up to 70% of people that go to your website will never come back again. So how do you capture their details? And email is a great way of building that communication.
And how have you gone about it, like with your kind of site? And I saw you have like a free guide. That's what you give away on your homepage, right? And it's like, how do you test these things? Like, should you give away an ebook to capture like their leads to like and get them to sign up, or what should you do?
you need to give away something of value. So when somebody downloads the guide, they have to be impressed with it as well because that's their first impression. So don't give away anything. You just give away something that's super valuable and useful that you go, I'm actually proud of this document, really good document. The guide does help to convince people to sign up. Um, for people to continue to keep signed up, you need to continue to provide useful information.
Mm,
I do use a pop-up, which is very good for conversion. Now, the
okay.
pop-up I use is opt-in Monster,
Yeah.
and that has an option called exit intent. So you can browse all you want on the website all day long and nothing will happen. As soon as you move your mouse off the main screen, then the pop-up comes.
Hmm.
So you're just about to leave the site, and then it'll say, well, why don't you subscribe? And that does very well for conversion.
Yeah, and then having maybe multiple places of exposure on your website. I don't know. Do you have it in the sidebar? I think you have some places there.
I do have it in the sidebar. I have it in the footer. I have it in the about us. I find that having it in multiple places is useful, but don't expect high conversion rate in the footer or the end of
Yeah.
your blog post. You'll get some conversion, but your main conversion will likely come from your side panel, your pop-up, or a feature image, which is a large image across the top of your homepage.
Yeah.
And we have it on razorsocial.com. You'll see it there, and that does reasonable conversion
Do
rates
you
as
use
well.
some tools to track like how you are doing with the conversions and all this, or how do you measure?
A couple of things on Opt-in Monster provides you some tracking information, and within the email marketing tool that we use provides information. And also we set it up within Google Analytics, so we got
Uh,
goals set up in Google Analytics to check conversion.
so you use like Aweber or something like that, or maybe Infusionsoft or
We use Entreport,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
Entreport
yeah,
is also popular. Okay.
yeah, it's like an Infusionsoft competitor.
Great, good stuff. But that's like it's all about that providing the value and like what would you like to? I mean, I kind of that's what I'm working on right now to put together a really great guide on something and then
Yeah,
give it away for free. That maybe even people would pay like I said a price tag to that $97 or
yeah,
something. Because I was impressed by your guide. I downloaded it. I
good,
saw
good.
like it was nicely designed. It was like a
Uh,
lot of tools. So I mean for the people listening, I highly encourage you to go to racersocial.com and sign up and get this guide because you get all the tools, even some of the tools we mentioned here today, and kind of explanation as well how you use them. And
yeah,
I think that's extremely important. So if we move on here, we are almost at the end, but I want to ask you kind of about your personal brand now because also I focus a lot on
yeah.
that. How do you make money now from your personal brand and where do you see it going, since you focused on building this like really amazing blog you have?
I mean, we make money at. I speak at events. I get paid for speaking at events. You get well paid for that. I've done some online consultancy and I do that. I do get paid for it and do get paid well, but I do that more to connect with the audience, find out what the issues are. Because when I'm talking to people on the phone, I'm finding out all the different issues, and that gives me great source of content.
Mm.
I've done some tool evaluations for a range of brands. So brands come and look for advice on the different tools. I'm working with VentureBeat at the moment because of the personal brand. VentureBeat said, "Oh, you're a global expert in marketing. Will you do some reports for us?"
Mm.
And we get most of the revenue from them reports, and they promote it to their audience. We do online training, and we're doing more and more of that. So we're actually launching the Razor Social Academy, and we're going to be doing blog training, social media training. We'll even do training on the likes of webinars because we're building up expertise in that area.
Yeah.
There's a whole different range of things. We do some affiliate relationships with tool providers. So, if you buy a tool after clicking on the link, we will get some benefit out of that. So there's all different revenue streams that are and they're all building as the audience is building. They all start off small. As the audience is building, that grows, keeps on growing and growing. So.
Definitely. I mean, but do you have a team helping you right now? You have some team members, right?
Yeah, we're building up team members over time. So my wife is part of the business, and
Mm.
she's extremely smart person and she done the guide and makes it look really well. And
Mm.
we're sending off a report to VentureBeat tonight, and my wife reviewed it all and all that.
Awesome.
So I have a girl called Diana who works with me, about 4 or 5 hours a day, and she's a strategist, digital strategist, but she's very good technically, and she would do initial evaluation of the tools. She will build the automation processes within Entreport. She will define sequences of events for the webinars and help with the Facebook advertising. So that's really important.
So you kind
And
of find them in house basically, or like around you. It doesn't sound like you outsource. Maybe do you outsource overseas and use like talent platforms as well, or do you just
yeah,
try to keep it close?
no, no. I mean, Diana is based in Holland. We've another girl that does our graphics work. She's based in Thailand. We're talking to a guy at the moment about the WordPress development. He's based in Poland. So I love having a spread out team, and I love just finding the best skills with a reasonable price with somebody that's keen, wants to work closely with us. And we've been very lucky with the people. So we do look at platforms like Odesk to find people, but you have to realize it's like you have to start off with small jobs, and if that doesn't work out, go to the next person with a small job, until they do an excellent job, and then you go a bigger job than the big job, and then just keep that person.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's kind of what I've done as well. And then going out to find, that's how I found my designer as well. I went out to websites. Before
Yeah,
that, I kind of had some failed projects. I went on Odesk, Elance, and all that. But
yeah,
I found it valuable to find someone. I trusted him because he designed other websites I liked. And then I
yeah.
went after him. But kind of the last thing I want to ask you is, do you monitor your brand at all? Like, how do you use, I mean, I use only like maybe Google Alerts. I don't know what else you should use to monitor your brand. You're the tools guy, so I wanted to have like a
I
tool
should
for
have
that.
some. I use brand24.net.
Oh,
So brand24 is an excellent monitoring tool. Like it does comprehensive monitoring. So, if somebody mentions my name on their Facebook page within brand24, I'll be able to go in, click on it, then go in, respond to people saying thanks very much for mentioning and
I will
sharing.
try
So
that. I will try mentioning you and then I will see
you'll see
without
it's
tagging you and you will see that.
yeah, yeah, just my name
Okay,
is
I'm gonna
mentioned or
try
my
that actually.
brand is mentioned.
Okay, interesting.
Twitter, Facebook, Google blogs. There's a whole range, and it's really comprehensive. So I do keep a track of that. Yeah,
Is it free or premium?
it's there. It's premium, so there is a. It starts off something like $10 or $15 a
Okay.
month, and then it goes up. You know.
Definitely. Just I'm just so impressed with all the valuable content you've shared here today. So many tools,
Good,
and not only tools, like you've like giving us kind of a blueprint how you can start and like a strategy as well. Even though you don't call yourself the strategy guy, you're giving us like a roadmap, like how we should
good.
go about building our blog, building our brand. So now it's your turn. Where can we find you online, and where should people go?
Thank you very much. Yeah, razorsocial.com. Easy to get there. If you sign up to email list, I always respond to people. So no matter once somebody sends a reasonable, email in, I'll always respond to it. And that's the best place. Or on Twitter, Ian Cleary is on Twitter, IANCLEARY. That'd be great.
Definitely. And I'll link up everything in the show notes over at navid.me slash 33, I believe, this episode. So that's going to be the episode number. And any final words to the audience here?
Well, first of all, let's say thank you very much, Navid, for having me on. I really appreciate you having me on. I think you're doing an awesome job in your blog. I was really impressed when I seen it.
Thanks.
So you're getting things right for sure. Anyway, last thing is, I suppose entrepreneurship a lot is about perseverance, and on social media, you certainly need to persevere and you need to be consistent. So produce high quality content, add lots of value with everything you do, and consistently deliver that, and build the relationships, and then you'll be very successful. Most people on social media look at it as an advertising platform and are on Facebook. You ask people, why are they on Facebook? No idea. On
Yes.
Facebook because somebody else said they should be on Facebook. So be different than everybody else and go, okay, I'm going to add value to my audience. Where is my audience? And then how can I add value? And if you're adding value with every piece of content you're delivering, you'll do really well on social media channels.
Yeah, definitely be resourceful. And as you
Yeah,
said, it's not a sprint. This is a marathon, and we are in this
yeah.
for a long run, building a sustainable business and brand for ourselves. So I would like to really, really thank you for coming on my show today and sharing so much great stuff. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you very much. Delighted
Thanks.
to be on it.